Here's today's agenda. First thing we're going to do is talk about OCS all-in-one controllers in general as versatile automation components. Not all of you are familiar with all-in-one controllers in general and the OCS specifically, so we're going to give you a little bit of an introduction there. Next, we're going to talk about our latest OCS controller, the XL4, and we'll show you how the XL4 has advanced the state-of-the-art in all-in-one control. Okay, what is an all-in-one controller? Well, an all-in-one controller is really a new way of solving an old application. PLCs have been in use for many, many years now, and the traditional approach is to have separate components for handling control, networking, I/O, and operator interface. An all-in-one controller combines many of these features, specifically logic control, operator interface, I/O, and networking, into one component. And furthermore, it does that with one software package to make it easy to configure. What are the advantages of an all-in-one controller? Well, the level of functionality that you can achieve over a traditional approach, especially in the low-end and the mid-size type machines, is significant. A lot more functions can be performed, things like data logging, networking on systems that normally would be smaller than you would see networking applied with. And when you combine that functionality along with the price, an advantage is definitely value. All-in-one controllers are space-saving. You're taking multiple components, putting them in one package, taking up less space, which saves money. You have one software package to maintain and develop your entire application. So if you want to enhance the logic or enhance the operator interface screens, maybe add some networking support, you can do all that by updating one application software package and one application file and just ship that off to the field and upgrade your machine. Also, time to market. Because the different functions are pre-integrated in one package, you start immediately programming how your machine will operate, not starting with making the controller talk to the operator interface and talk to the network. All that has been done ahead of time. So time to market can definitely be saved. Now that you've got a little bit of a background about all-in-one control in general, let's talk a little bit about our all-in-one controllers, the OCS. OCS stands for Operator Control Station, and even though this component type may be new to many of you, we've been selling OCS products for the last 15 years. We were one of the pioneers in this product segment, introducing our first OCS back in 1998. And our philosophy has always been that control is first. So in 1998, we started with text-based units for the operator interface portion to make sure that there were no compromises required for the control portion of the product. And as technology of microprocessors and screens and other electronics has advanced, so has the technology of our products, as you can see here with some of the milestones that we've achieved over the years. We released our first color model in 2002, even though there had been color units released before then, but they were very underpowered because the electronics technology just wasn't there yet. In 2006, we introduced the first industrial product of any type utilizing micro SD memory, the kind you'll find in your cell phones and all over the place today. Back in 2006, we were designing that memory form factor in at the same time as the cell phone providers were. In 2007, we released our XLT, which was the first quartered-in touchscreen. And then just last year, we introduced a 22-inch all-in-one controller, which is still the largest and one of the most functional all-in-one controllers in the world. And it was the first one that features all-in-one programming. I'm sorry, that features all-in-one. It was the first all-in-one. Let's try this again 3 times fast. The first all-in-one that features online programming. And online programming is a feature which allows you to change your logic on the fly without going through stop mode. For certain types of machines in certain troubleshooting scenarios or certain startup scenarios, this is a very valuable feature. Last year we introduced it with our ZX product, and then we're carrying that forward with our new XL4 that I'm introducing to you today. So after taking a look at some of the milestones over the years, I want to show you what OCS looks like today, because it looks very different than 1998. As we go through series by series, let's start with the XL series. This is our entry-level all-in-one controller. It is our most popular, certainly from a volume standpoint. These are highly functional, very compact controllers at a low price, which gives them very high value. And these are certainly a lot more functional than your typical micro PLC. They offer features that you typically will not find until you get into a mid-sized PLC or more. Moving up, we have our QX series. These all feature vibrant color graphics with Ethernet built in from the factory. They all have snap-on I/O available for adding I/O directly on the back of the units. Of course, you can also add I/O over a network or over expansion in the same panel or remotely. And they're available in sizes ranging from 5.7 inches all the way to 15 inches. The QX series is very popular with mid-sized OEMs, which have mid-sized machines. Just because of the level of functionality and the size of the screen, it's a very good fit there. The ZX series is our highest-end, fastest logic-solving controller. It also features the largest screen. We introduced the ZX late last year. The ZX features online programming, dual Ethernet, and all-metal construction. And it's available in 3 sizes, 7 inches, 15 inches, and 22 inches. And certainly, even though the ZX is new, it's really started, the interest in the ZX and the sales have really started to pick up here over the early part of this summer. Now let's talk about some specialty controllers. These are not series on their own, but they offer something unique or special that makes them work well in a variety of applications. Let's start with our ruggedized 5.7-inch unit that we call the RX371. This unit features a cast aluminum and steel construction. It has a Lexan touchscreen, so the touchscreen is virtually indestructible. It has keys that are rated for 30 million operations and higher, virtually indestructible keys as well. And it's been a very popular product since we released it in the last couple years. So it does very well for mobile applications, for outdoor applications, applications where they need another level of ruggedness than what you would find with an indoor product, for instance. We also have traditional key-based models in our NX there in the center. Those are very popular with customers who just, for whatever reason, cannot use a touchscreen in their application. These have bright displays that are transflective, so they can be used outside or in direct sunlight. Again, they don't feature a touchscreen. And you can snap I/O on the back of them or use expansion I/O. And then we've always had displayless controllers, which have all the other functionality of OCS in terms of networking, control, and I/O, but which don't feature a built-in display. Back in the late 90s, we have the RCS, Remote Control Station. Our latest displayless product is our RCX, which you see pictured here. In any application, really, I/O is one of the areas that varies the most. Beyond screen size and screen type, the I/O that is desired for a particular application or by a particular customer tends to vary. So, for instance, we have what we call Smart Stack I/O, which can snap on the back of a lot of the OCS models directly to take care of I/O on the door, for instance, or I/O in the local panel. You can also use that stackable I/O with our displayless RCX, as we're showing here. We also have a product we released in 2010, Smart Rail, which is a little bit more of a traditional I/O system, which is modular. It features a base which can be connected to the OCS over a couple different methods, whether it's CAN or Ethernet. And you have the ability to add up to 8 I/O modules to each base, and then you can have up to 16 bases. So you can really expand beyond just 20, 30, 50, 100 I/O points. You can really expand greatly beyond that with Smart Rail. Smart Sticks is our terminal block style I/O. which comes in 16 and 32 point densities, and we offer not only digital but also analog. And then Smart Block is our remote I/O that's great for specialty, especially things like high resolution isolated analog, thermocouple, RTD, that sort of thing. So Smart Block is another I/O structure that we offer. So really, whatever the application, whether it's remote I/O up to 500 meters away, or all the I/O is localized in one panel, we have a style of I/O that should work for just about any application. And then what ties all the OCS models together, along with the I/O, the networking, and the displays, is the software. One software package for every model we sell, from the first model we released back in 1998 to the latest XL4 model we just started shipping yesterday. And this software package is called Seascape. No complicated licensing models. It's available to download off the web and immediately use, so there's no expensive startup cost to start using OCS in an application. And everything you need to do in the application is all taken care of with one software package. Okay, now let's talk about the XL4 in particular, which we consider our latest and greatest all-in-one controller. For those of you who are familiar with the OCS, you may be also familiar with our XLT. That was the first touchscreen that we released in the quarter DIN size, which is the same size as the XL4. And you may be thinking that the XL4 is just a color version of that product. Well, certainly that couldn't be further from the truth, as we have added tremendous amount of functionality and performance to the XL4. So it's really the first of a new series of next generation OCS products that really cements our position as the technology leader in this product segment. From a pricing standpoint, the XL4 fits in right about where you'd expect it. It's a model in between our 3.5-inch monochrome XLT and our 5.7-inch color XL6. It's priced about the same as taking our monochrome XLT and adding in the field an Ethernet option card. Basically it's $200 higher than the XL4. However, there's more than just a color screen, more than just embedded Ethernet available with the XL4, and let's go into more detail. Let's start with the screen. Side by side here I have all three of our quarter DIN controllers, from the XLE with its 2-inch 128 by 64 monochrome screen, the XLT with its 3.5-inch 240 by 128 monochrome touchscreen, and then the XL4, which has quarter VGA resolution and full color, also in a 3.5-inch display. Effectively, it has the same screen specifications and graphics specifications as the XL6. That makes it very easy to take projects developed for the XL4 and download them and use them in the XL6. So another thing you'll notice with the XL4 is that the screen updates are extremely fast. The XL6 has good snappy screens. It's an extremely popular product, but the XL4 is even faster. So what is the real-world benefit to having this extra graphics, this color, this extra resolution in a 3.5-inch display? Well, first of all, you can display a lot more detailed, realistic information with better graphics for your machine, whether that's your company logo, which is maybe a minor point, although your marketing folks wouldn't say that, to more accurately depicting the process that is being executed or controlled by your machine, to being able to use digital snapshots in your project, maybe to give the operator assistance in troubleshooting the machine, or maybe starting up the machine, for instance. So there really is a lot more you can do graphically with the XL4 based on the fact that it has enhanced specifications on the screen. When we take a look under the hood at the XL4, we find a tremendous increase in performance. As a matter of fact, with the exception of our ZX controller, which is our highest end controller that we just released last year, the XL4 is the fastest OCS that we have. From a logic memory size, and we're just talking logic here, we have 1 megabyte of logic capability. So that's 4 times the rest of the product line with the exception of the ZX. That doesn't count the memory that's used for screens and for networking and configuration and that sort of thing, just the logic. From a scan rate standpoint, It's very fast. It is 13 microseconds per K of logic, which is half as fast as our ZX, but keep in mind the ZX is our top-of-the-line product. So that's extremely fast. From a memory standpoint, when you come to, when you're talking about registers, whether they're word type or bit type, big increases there. 5 times the word type registers, 8 times the bit type registers. And just like the ZX product, again, that's our highest end product, the XL4 has online programming capability so that during startup, you have the capability of changing your logic on the fly without going through stop mode. What are the benefits to having all this horsepower in a small controller? Well, first of all, you're not going to run into a situation where you want to add more logic, you want to add more diagnostics, you want to add more to your machine, and suddenly you've bumped up against the wall of capabilities of the controller and you've got to upgrade. That's not the situation with the XL4. You can add a tremendous amount of logic and continue to add logic, and it'll just keep right on cooking. So that's a big deal for a lot of OEMs who are faced from other automation manufacturers of having to upgrade to more memory or a faster product every time that they want to, add a significant amount of features to their machine. And again, if you're using the type, if your machine is the type that really can benefit from online programming changes, maybe it's some sort of a centrifuge or some other machine where you just don't want to have to stop that motor every time that you make a programming change during startup. Again, the XL4 has that capability that you can take advantage of. Now let's take a look at some of the other peripherals and other capabilities of the XL4. From a power standpoint, the XL4 is powered by 10 to 30 volts DC, wide range, which means it can be used with either 12 volt or 24 volt systems. Like every other OCS, the XL4 includes C-SCAN protocol built in, which is a great way to add unit-to-unit communications or extra I/O to the system. And we include a double plug that makes it easy to daisy chain the network together. So C-SCAN is a daisy chain architecture, so you have typically a network in, network out scenario at every node. Or on the ends, you've got a terminating resistor in lieu of a network out. And this double plug makes it a lot easier to land that wiring in a fashion which is reliable and easy to do the first time. So that double plug is a nice feature for the C-SCAN port. What are the benefits of that C-SCAN port? Well, really, the ability to add remote or expansion I/O is the #1 benefit. Whether that I/O needs to be in the same panel, and it's just a few points or a few dozen points, or whether that I/O needs to be distributed over a distance, say up to 500 meters away, C-SCAN is a great way of doing that. It's plug-and-play I/O, very easy to configure. It's very fast for most applications, and it's very popular in terms of the amount that we sell. You can also utilize the C-SCAN port to connect multiple OCSs together, and they can share their data in a peer-to-peer fashion as well. So that's another function you can take advantage of with C-SCAN. And that may involve I guess a rather simple redundancy scheme. If you want to have a second controller which can pick up what you need, if the first controller goes down, that's an architecture you can very simply and inexpensively add. Okay, like the other XLE and XLT and XL6 and other family members, the XL4 has a micro SD memory slot. It's located in the same location, right next to the serial port dip switch that you found it in, again, in the other models. However, when you take a look at the specifications, you'll find that it's a significantly enhanced micro SD slot. It supports memory cards that are 16 times larger or even greater. We've tested it with 32 gigabyte cards, haven't tested it with larger ones yet, as they're pretty uncommon. We've also really enhanced the speed. The file access times for reading and writing and displaying files on the screen is effectively up to 50 times faster as our other products with micro SD memory. So that's something you really notice when you pull up a memory card directory to maybe load a new program or something like that, you'll see that it really comes on the screen almost instantaneously. So what is the benefit of that micro SD slot? There's a lot of potential benefits, and this is one of the areas where you can take advantage of this functionality as something that you can't easily do in a PLC. With a lot of PLCs, if you want to do data logging, for instance, try and have some sort of recording capability of what's happening with the machine, most of the time you're using internal registers to try and do that. Some of the newer PLCs are starting to add that functionality, but it's usually in the mid-size and the high-end units. With the micro SD slot that's built into to the OCS, including the XL4, you can very easily set up data logging where you map I/O registers, whether it's temperatures or pressures or production counts, machine cycles, all those sorts of things can be very easily logged on a continuous basis, really, once a day, once an hour, once a minute, once a second. Just about everything that happens on the machine, you can log it. And so what that means is maybe a few months down the road or a couple years down the road when that machine needs maintenance, you'll have really a snapshot of everything that's been going on with that machine, its use and abuse since it's been deployed. And that can be a very invaluable capability. Another thing you can do with that micro SD card is you can use it for field updates. Again, because one software package and one application takes care of everything, whether it's graphics, networking, or logic, you can make whatever modifications you want and send out a single micro SD card. And after inserting the card and pressing a few buttons, the customer has completely updated his machine in all ways. The screens, the logic, everything. So that's another very valuable feature. When it comes to connectivity, the XL4 really shines. The traditional XLE and XLT products have two serial ports, MJ1 and MJ2. You see that on the left. We still kept the two serial ports on the XL4, but we took two ports and put them on one connector, or one modular jack. So what you have is an RS-232 and an RS-485 that can be simultaneously accessed. You just need a breakout cable or just a specially constructed cable, nothing that complicated. And you can use both ports simultaneously if you wish. So we really haven't changed that functionality a lot. We've pretty much kept that the same. We've just compressed the signals onto one connector. But what you'll find is that every XL4 comes with Ethernet built in, and this is full Ethernet with lots of capabilities we'll go through in a minute. And then it also comes with USB 2.0 host, which allows you to add flash drives and will give us other capabilities in the future. You'll notice that the USB drive is orange in color. That means it's got high retention capability. It passes the UL standard for retention, and that's 15 newtons of pull force required to actually pull the drive out of the connector. That's a requirement that UL has for any device that is to be used in a Class 1 Div 2 hazardous location. And by seeing the orange color on the USB connector, you know that we meet that standard. And then on the other side of the product, there's another USB connector, this time a USB Mini B, that's used for programming. So if we take a look at now the USB and Ethernet functionality in the table off to the left, you'll see that on the programming side and on the USB host side, we support USB 2.0 at a full 480 megabits, so no 12 megabit communications here, it's 480 megabits. On the flash drive, if you plug a flash drive into the USB port, you can support up to a 2 terabyte drive. Yeah, that's terabytes. Now, of course, we don't recommend rotating media in an industrial application, but the capability is certainly there. So as solid-state media advances in size in terms of USB and flash drives, the XL4 is there to support those sizes. And then from an Ethernet standpoint, with the full Ethernet functionality, we can support Modbus TCP both as a client and a server, or master-slave. We can support file transfers over FTP, web serving. You can have web pages with live data that you write, that you store on the local micro SD drive and access remotely. And another great feature is you can actually send emails with the XL4. So if you have an alarm condition on your machine, you can go ahead and send an email to the appropriate personnel to alerting them of the situation. And it might not just be an alarm condition that the machine is down. it could be a scenario where it needs more material and you want to send a service guy out or somebody out to refill the machine. Okay, so what are the real-world benefits of these capabilities? I think I've mentioned a lot of these before, but the ability to transfer files back and forth between a removable USB stick and the micro SD card. A lot of people use the micro SD kind of as an internal memory, so they kind of leave that card in the slot all the time for data logging and that sort of thing. And then they want to be able to access those files over USB. Maybe it's a scenario where the machine isn't permanently connected to a high-speed network and you want to be able to transfer files on and off kind of the old-fashioned way. Well, there certainly are plenty of wash-down capable USB ports that can be mounted on the outside of the enclosure that are connected to the XL4, which would allow you to walk up, plug in your USB drive, press some buttons on the screen to transfer files back and forth, pull your USB drive and walk away. So that's the capability you have. And then when you talk about Modbus TCP, whether as a master or a slave, controlling drives or other devices where the XL4 is a master, or the XL4 being a slave where it is serving up data for a SCADA system, those are two very common uses for a built-in Ethernet port like the XL4 has. And providing live machine data on a web page that's accessible on a factory intranet or maybe potentially over the internet with the right firewall settings. Let's take a look at the I/O, because the I/O is the one area I think most people think that we didn't change when that really is not true. First of all, the XL4 is available in the same basic 5 models as the rest of the XL series. It's available without I/O and then with 4 different I/O options. And you should be familiar with these for those of you who are familiar with the XL series. However, one thing we've done is even though the number and amount of I/O has not changed, we've greatly increased the specifications or improved the specifications. For instance, the XL series I/O on the analog input side is traditionally 10-bit. So if you're talking about the 102, the 103, or the 104 models, you're looking at 10-bit resolution on the analog in, which is very functional. Well, the XL4 with those same models provides 12-bit resolution. And on the Model 5, the XL4 provides 14 and 16-bit resolution, which is the same as what you'll find with the rest of the XL series. From a high-speed counter frequency standpoint, we've greatly enhanced the high-speed counter. With the XLE and XLT and the rest of the XL series, you've got a 20 kilohertz maximum spread out among 2 counters. And depending on how you configured counter number 1, you can limit the functionality of counter number 2. Well, what we have with the XL4 is we have 2 counters that are completely independent, so it doesn't matter what you configure each one for. They have full capability in each. Each counter is good for at least 500 kilohertz, and we've tested them beyond 1 megahertz actually, and they operate fine. And then we've increased the functionality. All the capabilities that are available in the XLE and XLT from a high-speed counter are also there in an XL4. And then we've taken some of the high-speed counter capabilities that are present in our QX product line, as well as our Smart Stack high-speed counter module, and we've made those advanced functions available in the XL4. So those are things like set point controlled outputs and custom high-speed counter options for OEM applications. So what are the benefits there? Well, because we've greatly increased the high-speed counter frequency, for instance, you can now support higher resolution encoders turning at a faster rate, which should allow you to support faster line speeds. Now being able to support triggered outputs based on a position independent of logic scan means that you can do some camming or programmable limit switch type functionality with the XL4. And then when you're interfacing with analog sensors at the higher resolution rate of 12 bits versus 10 bits, you should have the capability of having tighter control on the process. And then from an output standpoint, we have significantly improved the output frequency that the CPU can perform on the XL4. We've increased that to 200 kilohertz from the 65 kilohertz we were at with the rest of the line. Now keep in mind that the output driver circuitry is the limiting factor in how fast we can actually turn those outputs on and off. So if you're going to act as a stepper indexer, the output frequency, again, is limited by the output driver capability. However, with the XL4, we've got parallel outputs that are available as an option that I'll tell you about in a few minutes, that allows you to take advantage of the full 200 kilohertz pulse rate. So in terms of some special options for the XL4, these will be available not now, not at launch, but in the next quarter. I'll talk about the second one first. I mentioned the fact that even though all the XL series can support at least 65 kilohertz outputs, and the XL4 can support 200 kilohertz outputs, that the output drivers are the limiting factor. So we've got a high-speed output option, which is an add-on. It adds in the COM option slot, but doesn't take a COM port. That adder will add some parallel output drivers that support 5 volt, 12 volt, and 24 volt signals at a full 200 kilohertz for both PWM, which PWM isn't typically used at such high frequencies, but also with pulse train outputs for things like steppers, which is used at higher frequencies sometimes. So that's an option that will be available. That will be a field installable option in the third quarter. And then the XL series is very popular in outdoor and cold applications. And what we've done with the XL4 is we have specified a factory heater option with built-in thermostat, which will allow the unit to operate normally all the way down to minus 40 degrees. So that will mean that in an outdoor application in the wintertime or in cold temperatures, not only will the product function reliably from a control standpoint, but the screen will operate basically in a normal condition because of the heater that we've installed in the factory as an option. So that's something you'll see in the third quarter, well before it gets cold in the northern hemisphere. Okay, some of the commercial details. When is it available? Well, I need to update my slide because we're now shipping the XL4, which is terrific. The first orders went out yesterday, actually, so one day late on May 17th. And then we're starting to ship some distributor inventory today. And so the first customers are opening their units up today, as a matter of fact. They got them this morning. The approvals we have now are CE and CTIC. And then we have our own self-certified NEMA 4X. So they're perfectly suitable for a washdown application based on all the testing that we've done as a self-certified NEMA 4X manufacturer. Now, in July or August, we will have completed UL-recognized Type 4X rating, which means UL does the same test we do, actually probably not as stringent, and then they certify that it is a Type 4X rating. And then they'll also be putting on a Class 1 Div 2 hazardous location rating as well for the U.S. and Canada, and at that time we'll have the ATEX hazardous location as well. So those are the approvals that you'll see over the next couple months. From a part number and pricing standpoint, here's the pricing for the XL4 family for the 5 different models without I/O all the way up to the universal version. So it ranges, as you can see, from $745 to $975, very cost effective and tremendous value, especially when you consider all the functionality that you get.